In a tense courtroom, a stern judge was about to deliver his ruling when a little girl shattered the silence with an unexpected interjection. "I'm hungry." The room instantly fell silent. Her mother looked mortified, but what the judge did next stunned everyone and changed the course of the day. Before we dive in, please share where you're tuning in from, and if you enjoy stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe for more narratives. Let's begin. Laura Martinez awoke before dawn, as she did every day. The modest apartment she shared with her 6-year-old daughter, Olivia, was quiet except for the soft hum of Brooklyn's early morning streets, a city that truly never sleeps. Yet Laura hardly slept either. That morning seemed like any other, until a single change. Instead of dashing off to work at the downtown bakery, she now had to stand before a judge over what appeared to be a minor issue that somehow loomed large: a $200 parking ticket. As Laura glanced at Olivia, sound asleep with her cherished stuffed bunny, guilt washed over her. She hadn't meant to park in the wrong spot. She was simply hurrying to pick up life-saving medicine for a recent fever. Now, she and her daughter were caught in a predicament she couldn't afford. "Come on, Liv," she murmured softly, gently brushing Olivia's curls. "We have to go." The Brooklyn courthouse loomed intimidatingly with its lofty ceilings, gray walls, and guards as stern as stone statues. Laura felt small, clutching Olivia's hand tightly as they stepped inside. Rumors swirled about Judge Jonathan Reed, the very man they were about to face, renowned throughout New York for his unyielding adherence to the law. Laura could scarcely imagine persuading someone like him to be lenient. While they awaited their turn, she silently rehearsed her plea. "Your Honor, I'm a single mother. I only parked for a few minutes. I couldn't afford to miss work." Suddenly, the bailiff's voice broke through her thoughts, calling her case. Swallowing hard, Laura repeated, "Come on, Liv," softly to herself as she and Olivia approached the bench where Judge Reed sat, serious, expressionless, and imposing behind his massive desk. Methodically, he flipped through the paperwork. The sound of his pages turning filled the courtroom like the steady tick of an unseen clock counting down to his verdict. "You parked illegally in a wheelchair-designated spot," Judge Reed declared in his gravelly voice, echoing throughout the room. "Do you deny this?" Laura's knees nearly buckled as she clutched Olivia's tiny hand like a lifeline. "No, Your Honor," she began, but before she could continue, a small voice interrupted the oppressive silence. "Can we get pancakes, please?" The words hung in the air for a split second, then ricocheted off the walls, amplifying the shock. Every eye in the courtroom turned toward them. Laura's pulse raced as her cheeks flushed a deep crimson. Gasps erupted, as if the room had collectively inhaled before a storm, and murmurs began to ripple through the onlookers. The whispers mingled with stifled laughter and wide-eyed disbelief. Who would dare interrupt? Even Judge Reed, Brooklyn's most formidable judicial figure, paused mid-sentence. His pen stopped in its tracks as if time itself had halted. Slowly, he raised his steely gaze from the paperwork to focus on the tiny interloper, Olivia, the 6-year-old daughter barely reaching the podium beside her mother. Laura's heart pounded as she hissed, "Olivia," mortified beyond belief, while crouching to gently grip her daughter's shoulders. "What are you doing?" But Olivia, undeterred, met her mother's gaze with calm resolve. "My tummy's making loud noises," she explained matter-of-factly, pointing at her belly. The murmuring crowd shifted into a blend of suppressed chuckles, disbelief, and amusement. A few audience members exchanged knowing looks, trying to hide their smiles behind their hands. Even the usually stern bailiff's expression softened, a slight twitch at the corner of his mouth betraying his surprise. Judge Reed remained seated, his normally cold eyes now filled with a hint of curiosity, a look no one had ever seen before. Laura's stomach churned with anxiety. This was it, she thought, her heart hammering as she braced for the worst. Then, in a move that left the entire courtroom dumbfounded, Judge Reed slowly raised an eyebrow. "Did you just say pancakes?" he inquired, his tone shifting from scolding to genuine curiosity. The room held its breath. No one dared speak. Laura blinked in disbelief at the judge's words, unable to process what she just heard. Beside her, Olivia nodded eagerly. "Yeah, pancakes with syrup, please." This time, the silence didn't last long. A ripple of laughter began to break through. Someone coughed to cover it, followed by a few snickers. Soon, the tension shattered like thin ice. Laura buried her face in her hands. Her cheeks burned as if aflame. She wished she could vanish into the floor. "I'm so sorry, Your Honor," she whispered, her voice nearly drowned out by the laughter. She's just hungry." Judge Reed raised his hand, and the courtroom fell silent once again. Laura's heart pounded as she braced for his wrath, yet there was no anger on his face. Instead, he leaned back in his tall leather chair, his sharp features softening into an expression that blended amusement with contemplation. "Miss Martinez," he began evenly, his voice carrying a faint warmth, "are you telling me you didn't have time for breakfast this morning?" Laura swallowed hard. "No, Your Honor. We were in such a rush to get here." She glanced down at Olivia, who stood proudly with her hands clasped in front of her, as if making the most logical request in the world. Judge Reed returned his gaze to Olivia, who met it without flinching. There was no trace of fear in the little girl's eyes, only the unfiltered trust that a child offers so freely. "What's your name, young lady?" the judge inquired. "Olivia," she replied confidently. "But you can call me Olivia." A gentle ripple of laughter spread through the room. Even Laura, despite her embarrassment, couldn't help but smile at her daughter's fearless candor. "Well, Olivia," the judge said kindly, "I don't believe I've ever had anyone request pancakes in my courtroom before." Olivia tilted her head thoughtfully. "Maybe you should have some too. They make you happy." The audience burst into laughter again, and even Judge Reed allowed the faintest smile to appear at the corner of his mouth. Laura's breath caught in her throat. Had he really smiled? A smile from a judge known as the most unyielding in Brooklyn? That small moment felt like a seismic shift. Shaking his head as if to regain composure, Judge Reed announced, "Let's take a short recess." His voice, though firm, carried an unexpected lightness. The bailiff leaned in, clearly taken aback. "Your Honor, recess," the judge repeated. "I need a moment." The courtroom buzzed with whispers as he stood and exited through a side door, leaving everyone, including Laura, staring after him in astonishment. "Mommy," Olivia whispered, tugging at Laura's sleeve, "is he going to get pancakes for us?" Laura couldn't answer. She was as baffled as everyone else. Yet for the first time since entering that intimidating courtroom, a spark of hope glimmered within her. Returning after the break, Judge Reed leaned forward slightly and addressed Olivia with gentle concern. "Young lady, are you saying you're hungry?" Olivia nodded solemnly. "We didn't have breakfast." Stammering, Laura tried to apologize. "I'm so sorry, Your Honor. We were just in a rush." But before she could continue, the judge raised a hand to silence her. "Miss Martinez, give me a moment." The murmurs in the courtroom grew as people exchanged glances, whispering about the judge's unexpected patience. Softening his tone further, Judge Reed turned his attention directly to Olivia. "What does your mom do for work?" he asked. Olivia brightened as she answered. "She bakes cakes and cookies at a bakery, and sometimes she works late at a restaurant." The judge nodded, listening thoughtfully. "That sounds like a lot of hard work," he remarked. The room quieted as Olivia continued, describing how her mom worked tirelessly and how they rarely had time together because of her busy schedule. Laura sat frozen as her daughter unwittingly revealed their struggles to everyone present. When the session resumed, the atmosphere felt transformed, lighter, as if Olivia's honest words had opened a window and let the sunlight pour in. Laura took her seat at the defendant's table with Olivia nestled beside her, both quietly absorbing the unexpected turn of events. Judge Reed re-entered the room, his flowing black robe marking his presence as he resumed his seat. The silence returned, but now it was free of tension. The heavy aura of his usual presence had softened into understanding. Clearing his throat and adjusting his glasses, Judge Reed fixed his gaze on Laura. "Miss Martinez," he began evenly, his voice now imbued with warmth, "I've reviewed your case." Laura's heart raced as she braced herself for the decision. Would he reduce the fine or impose a penalty? "Do you have a clean record?" he asked. He continued, "Not a single previous citation or legal infraction. You've done your best to stay on the right side of the law, and I understand the circumstances that led you here." Gripping the edge of the table, Laura felt the room shrink around her as she awaited the verdict that would change everything. Then came the words that swept over her like a wave of relief. "Given your history and the efforts you make for your daughter, I am dismissing the $200 ticket." A stunned silence fell over the room. Then, as if a dam had burst, soft applause began, and soon grew into cheers, claps, and murmurs of approval. Even the bailiff's stern expression softened into a small smile, and those in the gallery nodded in quiet affirmation, murmuring, "It's about time." Overwhelmed, Laura gasped, her hand flying to her mouth as tears welled up in her eyes. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. The heavy burden that had weighed on her for so long now seemed to lift. "Thank you," she whispered through her tears, her voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you so much, Your Honor." Olivia beamed up at her mother as if she'd always known things would turn out fine. "See, Mommy? I told you pancakes make people happy." A gentle chuckle rippled through the courtroom, but Judge Reed wasn't finished. He reached for a folder on his desk and carefully opened it. "Miss Martinez," he said softly, addressing her once more. "While dismissing this ticket eases your immediate burden, I also want to help you face the larger challenges." He handed a printed sheet to the bailiff, who delivered it to Laura. This list includes resources for childcare, support, job training, and even an online degree program at no cost to you. Laura stared at the paper through tear-filled eyes, the printed words blurred as she read them aloud, scarcely believing that such opportunities existed. Her hands trembled as she clutched the list, as if afraid it might vanish if she let go. Judge Reed continued, "I understand that being a single mother is challenging, a challenge that most of us cannot fully imagine. These resources can give you a chance to build something better for you and your daughter." Laura's knees weakened as she held the list close, a lifeline in her hands. Barely able to look up, she whispered, I don't know how to thank you." "There is no need to thank me," Judge Reed replied, offering a gentle smile. "Justice isn't solely about punishment. It's about understanding and lending a hand when it's needed most." Overcome with emotion, Laura couldn't stop crying, tears of disbelief, relief, and gratitude mingling freely. Meanwhile, Olivia tugged at her sleeve again, asking, "Mommy, are you happy now?" Laura pulled her daughter close, pressing a tender kiss to her curls, and whispered, "Yes, baby." "I'm happy." Judge Reed's final words resonated in the courtroom. "This case is dismissed." The room erupted into louder applause as people rose to their feet, cheering softly as though witnessing something truly precious. Justice had been served with a human heart. For Laura, it wasn't merely about a dismissed ticket. It was about the restored hope and the kindness shown when she least expected it. As Laura and Olivia left the courthouse, the list of resources still clutched in her hand, she glanced back at Judge Reed. No longer was he just a stern figure in a black robe. He was someone who saw her struggles and truly cared. "Thank you," she whispered once more, not just for the fine being dropped, but for a second chance at life. She felt a sense of empowerment rather than defeat. With Olivia's small hand tucked firmly in hers, she understood something profound. Kindness and hope could be found even in the most unexpected places if one was willing to see them. The heartwarming moment quickly spread beyond the courtroom. Local news outlets and social media platforms shared the story of a judge who defied his rigid reputation, moved by the honesty of a hungry 6-year-old. The public response was overwhelming, with many praising his ability to show both wisdom and empathy. Conversations sparked across social media about the role of justice in society, and many people reflected on how small acts of kindness could create a ripple effect of change. For Laura, this marked the start of a new chapter. She enrolled in the online degree program, secured better childcare, and, for the first time in years, felt a renewed sense of hope for the future. She finally allowed herself to dream again, envisioning a time when she could provide Olivia with more stability and opportunities. As for Judge Reed, the experience changed him as well. He came to understand that the law wasn't just about enforcing rules. It was also about compassion and lifting up those who needed it most. He began implementing new initiatives to help low-income individuals access legal aid and resources that could prevent them from falling through the cracks. Months later, on a bright morning, Laura sat at their small kitchen table, studying for her classes while Olivia happily munched on a plate of pancakes, her favorite breakfast. The aroma of syrup and butter filled their tiny apartment, making it feel warmer and more hopeful than ever before. "Mommy, do you think the nice judge likes pancakes too?" Olivia asked with a giggle, swinging her legs beneath the chair. Laura smiled warmly, a twinkle in her eye. "I really think he does, sweetie." Sometimes the pure honesty of a child can open hearts, change lives, and remind us all that kindness often appears in the most unexpected places. And in this case, a simple request for pancakes had reshaped the lives of 2 people forever. What are your thoughts on the judge's decision? Do you think he made the right call in dismissing the fine and helping a struggling mother? If you were in his position, what would you have done? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. See you in the next video.